What'd you guys think of this morning segment?
It was great. It was really good.
How'd you guys do on the questions? Have we ticked most of them off?
No, we spent a lot of time on the very first one.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
Good. That's okay. Well, then we've got content.
Oh, okay.
All right, so what we'll do is we'll address these things here today. We've got a little bit of content to go through. Here's kind of how the afternoon will lay out. Right now, you have one of the most unique opportunities, which is to spend about 2 or 3 hours with one of the most influential people in Tampa Bay.
I'm going to pay him later.
And you're going to know why she's the big deal that she is, just hearing her speak. This is one of the most unstructured segments as well, simply because, honestly, I kind of like to just pull her ripcord and let her go. And then I just sit over here and I just fanboy after her because I admire her so much. But if you are not aware of who Rhea Law is, she is the chairman of Buchanan, Ingersoll, and Rooney. And I always mess up the number of employees that she has, and so it ends up like I've inflated it. So I was going to start off saying she's responsible for over 10,000 attorneys throughout the plant, but I thought, no, she'll figure it out.
Really.
So how large is the law firm?
Well, actually, we've been doing a little right sizing.
Okay.
So total employees is about 1,200.
Okay.
And lawyers is about 500.
And you are in charge of all of them, or Florida?
Florida.
Florida.
I'm in
That's
charge
right.
of Florida.
But your law firm is in how many states?
We are in 19 states, and I was originally the chair of Fowler White, which was a Florida law firm, and we merged with Buchanan Ingersoll 4 years ago.
Was it 4?
It's hard to believe.
Wow,
It's been
yeah.
4 years. And we merged with them because they had a national footprint, and that's what our clients needed. So we did one of these partnership analyses that we'll
I'll
talk
have her
about.
tell the story, by the way, because it's a fascinating story, and it really kind of shows the power of what happens when you use a lot of these strategies, which she was using without even knowing what they are, because we didn't invent these, we just identified patterns of success within that. So this afternoon really is addressing one main form of partnership, which is kind of an ambiguous term, which we refer to as relationship capital. If we were to scope out and just look at all of the different business models that are out there, the one business model that we're pretty adamant about being the worst business model is the solopreneur. And the reason for that is because it's just too hard, right? Going it alone is rarely ever the right answer in business. Even businesses which promote home-based businesses where you can be your own boss still have support service mechanisms built in to where you don't have to go it alone. So when you think about it from that perspective, starting your own business and just doing it all on your own is very hard to do. It's probably one of the best ways to get an ulcer or a heart attack or it's just got health problems and everything else with it. So I don't recommend it. Oh, Anna? I left my glasses in the office. Would you mind bringing them in, please? Thank you.
Are we recording?
What's it? Yeah, we are. Yeah, she hit the record. So I'm going to get through a little bit of content, but I really just kind of want to have Rhea share with you her story about how she has grown from, was it a 7-person law firm when you first got your degree? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Up to now, what'd you say, 1,200?
1,200.
1,200, right?
500 lawyers.
What's that?
500 lawyers.
How many lawyers? 500 lawyers?
500
Yeah.
lawyers.
Yeah. Or if you ask me in a week, it will be 5,000 lawyers, 17,000.
Yeah, active imagination.
Yeah. I just like to describe how I perceive her, not the facts that I've read. I first met Rhea Law, by the way. I guess it would have been 5 years. It might be right around the time you guys were doing it. It's probably as close to 5.
No, it was before that.
Was it?
I think so. I think we met you through.
I met you through
Robin.
Bruce and Robin, yeah. So my previous landlord was hosting a fundraiser for NAOP, and it was called Cars, Cigars, and Guitars. The 3 most favorite things of this guy's life were cars, guitars, and cigars, and he had quite the collection of all of them. So he put on display his private guitar collection along his private car collection, which consisted of some of the most amazingly sick cars.
Very.
Yeah, the guy owned a NASCAR, which is even illegal to own one of those things, and he found a way to get his NASCAR license so he could own a NASCAR.
And he started it up for us.
Yes, it was awesome. I actually have a video of that
Yeah.
where he fired that thing up, and I'm sitting there, his dog, I can't remember his name, is in the back, and I'm just recording it. It's like, ka-chung, 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 ka-chung. And when that thing lit off, I'm holding the phone, I go, whoa! And you see the phone shaking, like, that is the most incredible feeling. It was amazing. But he was hosting this party, and because I had one of the offices inside his office, he needed it. He goes, you're invited at the party. Can we use your office for the food? And I'm like, oh, so they put the beer and the food in my place, which was the most popular part of the whole thing. And Rhea came to that party, and that's how I met her, and I was very much impressed with her. And then shortly thereafter, reached out, and she agreed to be our mentor, and she's been one of our mentors in the program since the very beginning. So I'm very honored. So we're going to talk about different types of partnerships then, because it doesn't sound like you guys, or maybe you answered some of these questions through the dialogue, and once we start going through them, you'll kind of hit that. But let's go through real quickly some of these different partnerships, and then we'll just take a pause and have Rhea share with you some of her story. We look at partnerships in 6 different ways. You can have brand partnerships, product partnerships, distribution partnerships, investment partners, introduction partners, and insights. Now, when you break them down into those 6 categories, you're going to discover that the types of partnerships that you create produce different effects. So for example, the brand, product, and distribution partners will create cash for your business. So if, for example, cash flow is your problem, you're probably going to want to then explore how you can develop brand, product, or distribution partnerships. If, however, you're doing strong on cash and you want to scale, then you may be interested in developing investments, introductions, or insights which will create wealth. And I like to describe wealth as what you have left over after you've lost all of your cash. So for example, if you were to take somebody like a Richard Branson and strip him of all of his cash to where he had a net worth of 0, he would be able to build back all of that net worth by the wealth of all of his connections. Yep, and he wouldn't be down for long. You can take people who are incredibly wealthy, strip them of their cash, and most of the time they can bounce back quite quickly. This is why you hear a lot of these stories of people who make it all, they lose it all, and they make it again. But what happens is they were so intelligent in when they were making it all that they developed a very strong wealth partnerships as well. So when the cash disappeared, they were able to rebuild. I have a friend of mine right now. I just spoke with a buddy of mine. I haven't spoken with him in over 10 years. And boy, when you run for office, you discover, we reach out to all of the people that you haven't spoken with, and I was like, this guy's down for $1,000 easily. The last time I spoke with him, he sold his company for $14 million. He's going to be doing great. And I called, and he starts telling me the story about how he had all of his money into real estate. He owed $1 million to the IRS because of Hurricane Katrina. The IRS came in and gave everybody a 1-year stay on their taxes. So instead of him giving the $1 million to the IRS, he kept the $1 million and thought he'd pay it the following year. The following year, the real estate market crashed, and he could not sell his real estate assets fast enough to keep up with the decline of the real estate. And he was on the Titanic, and he couldn't recover it. IRS came in and seized everything and left him with literally 1 single penny inside his bank account so he could keep it open. He lost every one of his homes. He lost all of his assets. Everything was repossessed, and then he got ill, and the doctor put him on an antibiotic. That the side effect of the antibiotic is it weakens your tendons, if you didn't know. And he was playing volleyball, and he shredded the tendons, and they all just rolled up like a set of blinds inside his right leg. And then he fell down, and as he fell down, the other one snapped and rolled up as well. So then he was hospitalized for 3 months, in rehab for 6, and basically essentially a functioning paraplegic, if you could call it that, for another year, because he had those, literally like in the movies, the big casts like this, and had to be wheeled around everywhere. Of course, he was on a 3rd-story apartment at the time that he'd rented after he lost his house, so he couldn't even live in his own apartment. And like it was just one thing after another. And now he's like, yeah, so I'm really struggling right now.
So you got him for 500.
Yeah, I got him for 500. I literally did. I got him for 500.
Did you really?
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
This man has no compassion.
He's got to win.
No, it was funny. I knew I was not going to ask. There's no way I could ask him for money. But to show you what kind of a man he is, when we started, and then he goes, "What's on in your life?" I'm like, "Nothing. Don't even want to talk right now. I'm good. Don't even want to." I didn't even want to share with him. But we started talking, and he was just so excited for my goal. He goes, "You can count me in for 500."
Wow, right on.
Yeah. He goes, I'll get online. You already got online. You already made the 500 payment. So, yeah, that speaks pretty good character. He's a guy who, we don't know. Like, did he just build all of his cash and not wealth? Or did he build both? We'll see, and how fast he's able to build that back up. So, be interesting. Right now, just take an assessment and ask yourself, out of those two, cash flow or wealth, which is the more, which is the higher priority for you right now? And that'll be kind of give you an idea of where we kind of are going to have you focus your energies here today. We'll talk about these things. In fact, we're going to talk about the cash. We're going to talk about the cash ones first, simply because they're in that order. And obviously, as small business owners, it's almost always cash in the beginning anyway. So we're going to talk about a little bit about that and share with you why partnerships work so well. So, and then what I'm going to say, I'm going to kind of break away from this. I'm going to show you how this applies to what Ria's life has been like over the in her career. So if you look at if you look at product, brand, and distribution, these are the three fastest ways to create greater degrees of cash flow in your business. And they actually kind of overlap with one another as well. So using a Venn diagram, we have brand, product, and distribution. I'll explain why these are great partnerships. And by the way, every company has some element of all three, right? So you're a business, you have a brand identity. We don't know what that brand is perhaps, or we all know what that brand is. Maybe you're struggling with the brand and people go, oh, I know that guy, I don't know what he does, right? Bad brand, right? Or people go, oh, I know that guy, I know exactly what he does. You might have great product, but nobody knows who you are, right? You might have actually kind of like not consistent product, but a great reputation because you're a person of integrity. Or you might know everybody in the world, have incredible distribution, but you haven't quite isolated what your brand is about, even though you have a great product, right? And I could actually pull local entrepreneurs here that you guys probably know, and we could start to do like a quick assessment of them and go, oh, I get it now. You look at somebody like an Andrew Machota with Newtown Connections, if you're not familiar with him. So Andrew Machota has great distribution because he knows everybody, right? And the product, by the way, is really good, but nobody knows what it is. He's not branded Newtown Connections in such a way to where everybody goes, I get it. Like I don't know, maybe a month ago found out that it's a paid membership, but I've had the app installed on my phone for 6 months or whenever it opened, and I thought that's all I had to do. So there's a communication going on that's just not working right? So if you were to look at this, here's what we recommend. When you partner with people, we want you to partner with people who are strong at least 2. Ideally 3, but never just 1. At least 2, ideally 3, but never just 1. And here's why it's never just 1. If you partner with somebody who only has 1 of these 3, you're the one that's going to end up doing all the work. In fact, I'll bet you we could probably have you guys tell stories of bad partnerships, and as we assess them, you'll discover that the reason why they were bad is because they only had 1 of these things, and it didn't fundamentally benefit you. Luda, your old business partner, right?
Well,
so
he's still kind
what
of.
he had was distribution. That's it. So he has great contacts. You think, let's bring him on as a partner, but who ends up doing all the work? You, right? Because you've got to supply the brand, you've got to supply the product, and you're doing most of the work, right? So it's best if you can find people that have 2, ideally 3. Now, if you want people to have 2, ideally 3, but not 1, what does that mean you also have to demand of yourself when you're looking to partner with people? Same. Because if you only have 1, guess what? You're the bad partner, right? You're going to be expecting them to do all the work, and that's not what you want. So I'll give you an example. If you have a company that has a great product and a great brand, but doesn't have a strong distribution, they don't have a methodology or a way to get that message out to the masses, but man, it's the world's best product, and they've got an impeccable brand. You call all of their customers and they back them up, right? And that person or that company partners up with a celebrity who has a great reputation, but they don't own any product. Now what you can see is you've got the great product, both of you have a great brand, and they've got a great distribution. So your distribution increases because of them, their revenue increases because now you're helping make product that they can sell, but your brand has an exponential growth because you have 2 people with an impeccable brand image going on. Make sense? That's what you're looking for. Celebrities leverage their distribution and their reputation all the time. But if they ruin their reputation, they're left with only their distribution, and all of a sudden they have a hard time getting sponsorship deals. Make sense? Yeah. So I would love for you to take a moment and assess where you're at right now. Which one is your strongest? Which one is number 2, and which one is the weakest? Now, we always have a strong one, we always have a weak one, but we want to make all of them as strong as we possibly can. So just do a self-assessment and let that kind of sit in your mind. And I'm going to have Rhea share with you her story about how she got into law. Because what you may think, which is a safe assumption, is that she's obviously, to hit that level of success, she's been a lawyer her whole life. And what you'll discover is that that is not true. So do you want to share with them a little bit about your
Sure. How
your
did
story?
I get here?
Yeah.
Well, just because my name is Law didn't mean that I got it. My first career was working for the University of South Florida, handling all their grants and contracts. And I actually wanted to go to med school, not to law school. So my background is chemistry and biology. I thought I was going to work at USF for a while, and then I'd go to med school and everything would be great. Unfortunately, that was not to be, because my parents didn't believe in going to college. And so that's why I went to work there, because they gave you 6 hours free. When I showed up at the med school, they said, well, we want you to go full time. And that was somewhat of a conundrum, because if I went full time, I couldn't work, and hence I couldn't eat. So it's, you know, one of those things you had to kind of work out. And because I was working there and I loved my job, handling the grants and contracts was dealing with individual professors from around the university every day. They would come with ideas of what they would like to research, and I would have to understand it enough to look for a funding source. Then I'd help them do the proposal for the application for funds, and when the money came in, I would administer it. So I was kind of a one-man band around this process. So I was having a good time. It was like getting an education in every area of the university all at once. So I figured, well, while I'm working here, I might as well go over to speech pathology, which I did. And there was no jobs in speech pathology at the time, but it's okay, because I'm having a good time at USF. I'll just keep going to school. And I thought, you know, I deal with contracts every day. Maybe business administration is supposed to be where I'm supposed to be. So I show up over there and I take some business law courses, and that really excited me, because this was a way to actually make a difference for other businesses. And my parents were small business owners at the time. I could see that I could be helpful to them, and that's really how I started the process. And you know, the end of the day came and I said, why don't I just go to law school? Those doggone lawyers I deal with every day aren't so smart. I can do that. So I turned in my retirement, which had vested with the university, and that's how I funded law school.
No, wait, how long did it take you to go through university, by the way?
Oh, 10 years. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
I mean, I was making a mini career out of it. but you know, I loved the learning process. It was wonderful to be in a place where you could continue to take courses in different fields that appeal to you. And I'd stop there and just say the appeal to you is very important. If you don't have a passion for what you're doing, if you're not really interested in it, then you're not going to do a good job at it. So, you know, don't even go there. I see so many people do something because they think that that's the best thing to do, or their parents told them to, or their best friend told them to, or their husband or wife told them to, and then they never really thrive. And I'll tell you how that applies to me. So anyway, I turn in my retirement, go off to law school, but just before I leave, I decided, you know what? I'm betting everything on this. I am giving up a job I love for something I think I'm going to love, but I'm not sure. And by the way, that's what my parents said. Are you out of your mind? You're actually going to give up the job that we know that you're doing so well in? And I said, no, this is a better move for myself, but I thought, I better not fail. So I went and spoke to every lawyer I could find, and I went to every friend that I could find that knew a lawyer and said, can you just introduce me to that person? I want to ask them one question. And the question was, if I were to graduate today and I came to you to ask for a job, what is it about my background or my capabilities that would make you hire me? I want to know specifically the criteria. And I had a long list. I kept that list with me all the way through school so I could make sure that I hit every single one of those. So, top grades, and, they wanted you to be in the top 5%. They wanted you to do moot court. They wanted you to do law review and have reviewed publications. So there was a whole list of things to do. And one of the things they told me is that there was a great need at the time for tax lawyers. And I thought, tax, I got a background in chemistry, biology, business administration, a little, some of these other things, but none of them was really tax. But to be true to my theory, I studied tax in school. I came out of school, and the very first day, the senior partner said to me, "Do you know anything about chemistry?" I was like, how would he know that? And I said, well, yeah, actually, I know a lot about chemistry. And then he asked the definitive question, do you know anything about phosphate mines? Now, most people in the world would say no, but since I spent all that time working at USF, I happened to work for a geologist who, yes, he had a grant to study phosphate mines. And I used to go out and do the sampling for him for free just because I thought it was fun and interesting. And I said, oh yeah, I know a lot about phosphate mines. And he says, this is great. We have a new client that is a phosphate company, and they need someone to do the air permitting, and nobody in the firm understands the science. You're it. And all of a sudden, I was an industrial environmental lawyer. This is my first day of work. I'm proud to say I've never practiced the first day of tax. That was absolutely wasted. And you know what? I wouldn't have liked it anyway, and I wouldn't have been good at it. And so I'm really glad I didn't do that, and I don't even do my own taxes. So that's how I got here.
All right. And that was a law firm that had 7 employees.
That's correct.
Yeah. Why did you pick a small law firm instead of trying to go for a big law firm?
Well, because when I worked at the University of South Florida, I was clearly negotiating contracts, so I was working with the local law firms, the law firms that represented the university, and I was working with the law firms that were on the other side of the agencies in the negotiations. And I did not like the culture of a large firm. I felt so much tension between the different stratifications of lawyer, so if you were a brand new associate, or if you were a starting out partner, if you were a senior partner, this firm felt bad. I mean, literally, you could walk into the office and you felt the tension, and I thought, I don't want to be part of that. That's not of interest to me. So even though I had people that were trying to get me to get involved with a large firm, I just said,
because it's not like you only had one job offer when you got out of the university. You had multiple offers, I would assume, from law firms.
No, actually, I hadn't even applied yet.
Okay, well, there we go. Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't even applying, but I was coming over to meet with the head of a very large law firm here in town.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, it was the largest law firm at the time. And the senior partner at that firm was a friend of the family. And so they said, you need to go over to him, he's going to give you a job. And so I went over to meet with him, and I didn't like him at all. And with my bent against a large law firm, the fact that I didn't like him, well, I'll tell you one story about him. So he was known for being a crusty old curmudgeon, okay? And so his claim to fame was he had this huge desk. It wasn't quite as big as this table, but it was pretty big. And he had it heaped over with paper like this. And the paper had been there forever. I mean, the ends were already discoloring from the, and he had this thing, I mean, he was known for this. And supposedly his big deal was if he knew that you were coming, he would figure out what you were going to talk to him about, and he'd salt some pieces of paper that was relevant to yours, and he'd hide them somewhere in the stack. And then when you came in and you asked your question, he'd say, I have something that's exactly on that point. And you dig through the thing and pull out the paper. It was so manipulative,
Wow.
but he got away with it. It was just awful. And so sure enough, I walk in and he reaches into his little salted stack. And I said, that is so terrible. I cannot work for this man. But when I came over that very day, I had gotten a call from the general counsel out at USF, and they said, you know, there's a new client, there's a small firm with a new client, you ought to give them a call. And I said, well, who are they? And he says, well, the name of the firm is Dixon, Lawson & Brown. I don't remember the name of the senior partner, but he's a really tall guy, and he's got a big, deep voice. And I thought, oh, that's the go on. I can figure this out. So I call up and I said, you know, my name is Rhea Law. I'm getting ready to graduate. I understand you have a new, big new client. I wondered if you needed an extra pair of hands. That was my whole presentation. Topher makes you do it better. Nevertheless, it was effective because he said, come on over. So before I met with the crusty old curmudgeon, I went to meet with the tall guy with the deep voice, and I mean, I was not ready for that at all. I was just talking to him. I thought I was just being nice, and he said, well, can I see your law review articles? And I said, oh, yeah, I do have those. And he says, are you going to give me a resume? And, yes, of course. And I left, went to meet with the crusty guy, went back to St. Petersburg, and when I got there, my phone was ringing, and it was the tall guy saying, would you like to come to work for us? So I never really applied,
Wow.
and so I don't know
Gotcha.
what might have been out there, but it was about culture. It was about the feeling that I got with the first guy, that I didn't even feel like I was applying for a job. I was merely talking to him, and we were sharing experiences, and it was kind of one of those fun conversations where you just felt like you clicked and you belonged there, versus the second guy where you knew absolutely you did not belong there.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So you found the culture that you wanted. You started with this firm. They had 7 employees. You loved the small atmosphere. Fast forward to the fateful day when they came to you and said, we're merging.
Yeah, so the tall guy with deep voice, by the way, his name is Clint, comes in and he says, Rhea, you know, we've got a great opportunity to go with a larger firm and to really be able to expand our offerings and to benefit our clients. And so we're really thinking seriously about doing that. And so I just wanted to tell you. And I immediately said, you know, Clint, I want to really thank you. You've given me great opportunities. You have introduced me to people. You have treated me as a partner. As a matter of fact, he used to introduce me as, this is my partner, Rhea Law. Now, I was a lowly associate that, you know, couldn't spell lawyer yet, but still, he put his mantle of credibility around me, and he introduced me to people that way, and they, you know, it made them look at me differently than they would have otherwise. And I said, you know, I can't thank you enough for that. The experience you've given me is beyond what I could ever have expected. But I'm not going to a large law firm. And so he just kind of sat back in the chair and said, Rhea, do you have another job? And I said, no. And he said, I wasn't thinking about the eating thing again. And he said, well, why don't you give them a chance? You might find that you like them. This firm is perhaps not what you think. And so we went over, we met with them, and I liked them right away. And what I really liked about them is the fact that they had so much more capability than the small firm did. They had different practice areas. If you had a unique or thorny question that you wanted to deal with, you could actually talk to someone who either wrote the law, you know, administered the law, somebody that really knew about it that could help you get through the process. And we didn't have that in a 7-person law firm. You know, you're pretty much doing it all on your own. Everything that we did, we had very large clients for a small firm, but we had to do all the work, and we had to, you know, learn so many different areas. And all of a sudden we got to get the benefits of specialization and that in-depth knowledge that was really beneficial to the client. Plus, it was a statewide presence as opposed to just being in Tampa, Florida.
So the reason why I love this story is because this echoes or this parallels what I see in the KPI program with a lot of our clients that come through, where we offer them a new idea or a new way of doing business or a new way of niching their business. And the first thing we get is pushback going, no, I don't want to do that. I've already tried having staff and it wasn't a good experience. I already tried having a partner and it wasn't a good experience. And I want to point that out because even if you've had a bad experience in the past with employees or partners or marketing partners or joint venture, however you want to look at that, just because you've had a bad experience with that in the past does not predetermine that it's going to be bad in the future. And what was, I think, the telling part of that story is that she was willing to pause her opinion for a moment in time to be willing to look for something else. And this is something that I'm becoming more and more clear on, and I picked up this phrase. I've plagiarized it. It's my words, but it's inspired from the book Principles by Ray Dalio. And if you have not read that book yet, I highly recommend it.
Into it now.
That's amazing, isn't it? Yeah. It's essentially 3 books in one, by the way. Have you read it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a monster.
Yeah, it's a monster. Yeah. He even says, he goes, this is 3 books in one. It's a biography. If you're not aware of who Ray Dalio is, by the way, that's okay. He's the founder of the most successful hedge fund on the planet. He's kind of the guy that all of our entrepreneurs that we worship and think are amazing, he's the guy they go to for advice, essentially. I mean, he's an incredibly impressive person. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, his firm is, I don't know that they've tipped 2,000, but they're definitely in the high 15s, I would say. He's come to that age where he's always kind of stayed behind the scenes, but he's come to that age where, well, oh, by the way, here's some things to know about him. His clients averaged a 14% rate of growth during the recession.
Well, his firm predicted the recession.
He was the guy who went to Ben
them,
Bernanke and said, the country's screwed. We have a problem, and if we don't fix this, something's going to happen. In fact, we actually all might owe Ray Dalio for us not being in a Great Depression right now. He very well may have got ahead of it because he's just got these principles of prediction that he uses. But long-winded answer here, but here's what I got from him. I don't know if he said this in the book, but this is what I say now. I don't ever care about being right or wrong. What I care about is what's true. And so in that moment, you were able to pause what you thought was wrong and what you knew was right to find truth. And she was able to find the truth that not all law firms that are large are stuffy and corporate and weird, right? Some of them can have, bless you, a really cool culture. So now you're in a law firm with 40 or 50 people.
Yes.
Okay.
When we started, it was about 40.
Now you have more resources, more access to just about everything. Probably capital was much better as well.
Absolutely. The banks liked us a lot.
Yeah, yep. And how long were you with that firm before it again decided to go big? And this was at this point in time, now you rose through the ranks, you became a partner with Fowler White?
I became a partner with Fowler White. And by the way, the business background was very unusual for a law person at the time. It used to be, you would either have history or political science, and those were the kinds of courses that you would take if you were going to go to law school. So me walking in with chemistry, biology, and business administration was kind of a weird bird. But it helped me because I was able to help them from a business perspective where they didn't have strong skills in that regard. So Clint, again, was the one that was responsible for what you call closing the books, and this is literally, doing the accounting at the end. And he would do it at the end of every week to see how we were doing. And, I started to pester him. This is, I think, probably on week 2, but it was probably week 4, where I'd go in and I'd say, I can do that for you. Why don't you let me do the books for you? And he says, no, you don't know how to do that. And I said, actually, I do know how to do that, and I can do a really good job at it. And he says, no. Well, I'm not one to be told no, particularly, because I am that drip of water that will come back over and over. And I would constantly be doing that. I'd be sticking my head in his office saying, anything I can do to help you? Can I help you with the books? No. Okay, so, and 2 days later, I'm back asking the same question, and finally it got tired of me, I suppose. And he said, all right, you can close the books. And if you don't do it well, you promise you will never, ever ask me again. I said, deal. I'll take that. And I wore myself out to make sure that it was perfect, and I gave him spreadsheets he'd never seen before, and he was pretty much amazed, and so I took that over. I took that to the new firm, because guess what? While certainly they had more administrative staff, the lawyers didn't really understand the financials of a firm. And I was able to show them what we had done, and that gave me the leg up to start working through the ranks on the leadership side of the house. So I moved through that pretty quickly. One other thing I'll tell you, when I got to the new firm, we had 40 lawyers at the time. There was one woman, and then there was me, which made 2. They hated the other woman. I mean, this is not dislike, this is a serious hate. They would just do awful things to each other, honestly. I mean, one day they came in, she came in over the weekend, decided she wanted to be in a bigger office, so she just moved her desk and stuff to the new office. And so the senior partner comes in on Monday morning and said, that's not happening. I mean, she's literally talking on the phone and they're taking the desk away. And I said, this is not a good relationship. This is not gonna work out for her, and I don't know what the problem was, but they did not get along at all. So she only stayed about a month after I'd been there, and I remember she came to my office and she says, I'm leaving, and I'm handing the baton to you. It's up to you to be successful. And I said to her, I'm sorry you're leaving. I'm sorry for the circumstance. I surely hope that you're going to find something that suits you better, but I don't want your baton. So that didn't sit well, but the truth is, I'm going to stand on my own. I'm not going to take on the baggage before I even get started. Don't taint me with that. Let's figure out how we're going to move forward on our own.
So now we get to this part.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, you grow through a level. I'm not sure how many years it takes, but at one point in time, your partners sit down with you and they say, "It's time for us to merge. When we own bigger market share, we want to get bigger. Let's find a partner." Yep.
Right. That's exactly right.
Okay.
So at that time, I had been the president of the new firm for 12 years, and I did a state of the state every year. And I was a big one for strategic plans, and nobody had ever done strategic plans in a law firm setting before. And I started out with a little department that I oversaw, and then each time I moved up, I would expand the strategic plan. So finally, when I became president, I said, okay, we're going to do it for the whole firm. And there was a bunch of things that we wanted to accomplish in order to be successful. And so each year, I would give a state of the state, and I'd say, here's our plan. Here's what we've been doing, here's our challenges, here's how we've changed it, here's our new challenges that are out there. And so we would adjust and figure out how we were going to move forward together. So this particular time, I laid it all out and I said, we have identified a need to have a more expanded presence. We have formed networks with other law firms, both domestically and internationally. But that doesn't give us the depth that we need, and we also run the risk every time we use some of our network partners. They don't always play fair with us. Some of them will try desperately to steal the client, and so you need to know who your partners are and make sure that they're the kind of people that you can trust. So I said, we can keep doing these things. We had been trying to expand in IP practice, and we were successful in getting 2 people, 1 patent, 1 trademark, and that does not an IP department make. And they were just very hard to start that kind of a practice in Tampa, Florida at the time. I mean, it's becoming much more obvious because there's a lot more technology going on, a lot more opportunities, but at the time it was very, very difficult. So I said, here's where we are, And here's what we can do to solve this. We can continue to go after this, looking for opportunities to pick off little firms, little boutiques here or there. Or we can look for a merger partner and instantly be able to do all of these things. And much to my surprise, they said, go look for a merger partner. So we immediately sat down and we researched law firms throughout the country. And we were looking for the things on our list. You know, are these people a fit? So there was a lot of big law firms out there that we said, this is not the right fit. We're not even going to talk to them. But we did identify 14 different firms, and I reached out to 14 different firms. Sometimes I had a connection with them, sometimes it was literally cold call. And we had been, you know, sometimes we would get very far down the process until we realized, you know, there's either a conflict problem or there's a culture problem or, you know, something just didn't work. And as a matter of fact, the last one that we talked to, we already had a deal sheet that we had conceptually agreed to. We went up to Atlanta to have a meeting with them, so I had all of my people with me, all of the people in the administration, so we could sit down and really get down to the specifics of the integration process. And then we were going to sign a contract and be ready to go. And in the middle of that meeting, I mean, we're around a table like this, all of a sudden their CFO comes rushing in the room with his hair on fire, and he says, there's a tax problem. And my immediate thought was, okay, we're tax lawyers, we fix that. You know, this is not a novel thing that we're doing, a merger of two firms, so what's the big problem? But much to my surprise, the CEO for the other firm, who was sitting across from me, said, oh, well, maybe we need to stop and take a look at that. And I thought, you know, that's not the kind of partner that I want. I mean, if we're going to talk about merging two firms and we're going to be timid about how we make decisions like that, I'm just not sure this is right. And he continued, you know, to back away from the process, and finally had my portfolio there. I just closed it and I said, okay, we don't have anything else to talk about. And I said, come on, guys. And we got up and walked out. I thought they were going to kill me. I did. I mean, we got in the elevator and they said, Rhea, what are you doing? And I said, you want to be partners with that? Is that what you're looking for? And they said, well, no, but maybe he'll change. And I said, they never change. They never change. That's not going to work. So we went home, and the very next day.
Okay, let's pause there.
That's the best part.
I know. Yeah, we're going to have a cliffhanger now. So, some key takeaways there. Takeaway number one, no matter how far along in the process you are, it's never too late to back out. Number two, if you don't know exactly what you want when you're forming a partnership, no matter how small or how large it may be, you may not find the right one. But if you know exactly what you're looking for, you'll be able to spot when you find the wrong one. This boils down to bringing on a new chef, to merging with another restaurant, right? It just doesn't matter the size. You've got to know what you're looking for, why you're looking for it. But there's another big one in here. I mean, you guys were thousands of dollars into this. I mean,
oh,
this was you
yeah.
were already bankrolled pretty heavily into this. I would assume.
Absolutely.
You're probably at
That's
least.
why I thought they were going to kill me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that we've ever talked to this. You had to have at least been maybe 3 months into, if not 6 months into due
We were about
diligence.
3
And
months.
due diligence is
Yeah.
expensive on a
Yeah.
deal of that magnitude,
Yes.
right?
We had already had our people come to meet their people.
Yeah.
I had 150 lawyers at the time. They had about 200 lawyers at the time. And we had flown them back and forth so that they could meet different practice groups and see what the synergies were. I mean, this was
You guys
not
probably
lightly done.
You were
Spent
literally
$1 million.
walking down the aisle.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
were.
And
we
all
were
your
gonna-
relatives were invited.
And I said, well, maybe not.
So there's just some cool things there. And here's another one. The interesting thing was that in all of the, and you had researched, I don't know, is the number right? There was 14 law
14,
firms?
14.
So this was the 14th one she'd already been down that path to some degree or other. This was the furthest. But there's something very important with regard to partnerships that allows you to get the best partnership possible. And it's a strange one, and that's this, that in the world of partnerships, it's always best to be the hunted rather than the hunter. And in Ria's case, she was being the hunt. Oh, how long of how long of a journey was this from the strategic planning where he said, let's do a merger? Was it about a year, 2 years?
Yeah, about a year,
Yeah.
year and a couple of months.
So for a year and a couple of months, she was essentially being a hunter and going out and trying to find somebody to partner with. And that's, I don't want to say never because that's almost hyperbolic, but it's I can't think of a time when being a hunter is the best thing to be. Being the hunted, in my opinion, is the best place to be. There's probably an exception somewhere in the world. Because when you're the hunter, you're essentially walking up and knocking on someone's metaphorical door going, please, sir, may I have a cup of porridge?
Yeah.
Right? You're the one that wants to work with them, right? And that it doesn't put you in a great place.
You have to make them move.
Yeah.
So that
Now,
makes
in
sense.
this particular case, you had the power to pull away and say you didn't want to eat that porridge, which was powerful. Most people wouldn't have the ability to pull away from an opportunity like that. They would just kind of go, well, maybe they'll change, and it was good that you spotted that. This next part of the story, though, is interesting. So in this next part of the story, 14, 15 months in of being a hunter, 3, 4 months, 6 months of due diligence, what'd you say, 3 months?
It was about 3 months.
3 months of due diligence for one company, and she gets back, that deal's dead, and what happens?
Next day, I get a call from Buchanan, Ingersoll, and Rooney. And they said, you know, we understand that it's imperative that we have a presence in Florida. You have the footprint and good lawyers. Would you be willing to talk to us about a merger?
And that fast, she went from being the hunter to the hunted. She came from a place of authority and power. She had better negotiation. And how fast did that deal take place?
Oh, we were merged in 2.5 months. And part of this, frankly, if I hadn't had the experience with the 14 others, I wouldn't have been able to do it that fast.
Yep.
But I mean, we had all the materials. And by that time, we were getting to be pretty good judges of character. In the 14 before, sometimes you just meet with them the first time and say, nah, this is a really bad idea. Sometimes you'd actually go a little bit into the discussion and say, no, there's a problem. So it was almost like you could, you know, you recognized it when you saw it. When I saw these guys, I said, okay, these are some people that I could be a partner with, that my firm could be a partner with, that we could actually work together, because you don't want to be part of a law firm where each of the lawyers are their own little silo. You want to have collaboration and cooperation, and that's what builds the power and the value for clients. When you have a machine that you can provide to them the kind of services that they need and think way outside the box. I mean, I was just having a conversation today with a client this morning. I'll just show you how this works. It was pretty amazing. So I had a call from him, actually while I was getting my car tire fixed. And he said, you know, I'm interested in bringing a business to Florida, but here's the problems that I have in thinking about doing that. And I said, okay. So I called one of my partners who's also in the legislature, and I said, if we were to float a piece of legislation, do you think we could get it passed? And he said, yes, we've done something very close to that, so this would just be a little tweak to an existing law. And I said, okay, that piece could potentially work. And I said, but we're going to need some help in getting this done. So before I came here, I was with the governor, and I said, you know, Governor, what if we were to do this, would you be interested? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, we can make this happen. I can now go back to that client this afternoon and say, since I last talked to you, I've talked to my partner and I've talked to the governor, and I think that we can make this happen. This is a huge, huge opportunity, and it just kind of came together because we had the connections And if I hadn't been with this firm, that never would have happened.
Yeah, you know how it is. You just pick up the phone, call the governor.
Pass legislation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Legislation.
Yeah.
I know,
Gavin's
I know
story
she's
there,
gonna
yeah.
talk about it down the road.
Come over here.
That's an influence kind of partnership.
Yep. Well, that's a wealth relationship.
Yes, that's a
Yeah.
wealth, that is a wealth that is also, you know, helping the cash, but it
Yeah.
is a wealth partnership.
Yeah.
And are you going to ask her questions about how she developed that
Yeah,
level
yeah.
of wealth?
Yeah, that one just kind of like
Yeah,
floated in there.
we'll get to that.
Okay.
We'll focus on this here real quickly, and then we'll kind of move on to that. But I want to point out how this partnership worked. So what we had was Buchanan, Ingersoll, and Rooney that had a great brand, and they had a great product, but they had no distribution in Florida. And then you've got Fowler White, which has great distribution in Florida, right? Great product and great brand in the state of Florida, but you have no distribution outside of the state of Florida. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the one thing that she doesn't have is the one thing that they need in the state of Florida. The one thing that they have out of Florida is the one thing that she needed outside of Florida. So it was really a beautiful match from that perspective because they could both then grow exponentially. Oh, two things, by the way. I remember one thing you shared in that story before is how you knew that it was going to be a good fit almost instinctively up front because you were so kind of, I don't know, put off from that last thing that when he called her, she says, okay, I'll draft it, what, an NDA?
Yes,
Yeah.
so we enter into confidentiality agreements clearly before we do anything like this. And the other law firms I dealt with, some of them would just sign the NDA that I sent them. Some of them would lawyer me to death, you know, and well, we want to change this word here, we want to change that word. Come on, guys. And that gives you an indication of, you know, what kind of people are these folks? Are they the kind of people that'll make a deal that are, you know, focused on the future, or are you just gonna nitpick? Because I don't want that for my clients. My clients want to make a deal of some sort when they come to me. They want something to be done. I don't want to give them 52,000 reasons why they can't do it. I want to give them one reason and mechanism to make it happen. And so when I said to them, the Buchanan folks, I said, okay, I'm going to send you an NDA by email, and by return email, he'd signed it, and I said, okay, he's serious. He wants to talk.
But there was no red lines. It was just
No,
he signed it
he
and sent
just
it
signed
back
it and sent it
right
back.
away.
That doesn't, I'm not saying just sign anything anybody
Yeah,
sends you.
right.
That's not the
Yeah,
message
yeah,
here.
Yeah.
Don't
was
do
the
that.
It was a culture filter that. There was something else I was going to talk about with that. And then the other thing, interesting thing about, I don't know how much value this is interesting, is that Fowler White had actually gone through not a merger, but Fowler White had split into two separate companies, correct?
Oh, yes.
In the state of Florida. So they didn't have any presence in Miami-Dade.
That's correct.
And the law, the agreement was that Fowler White would never go into Miami-Dade because they had old partners. I don't know if it was Fowler or White or some other name in there. So there was literally two law firms in the state of Florida called Fowler White.
Yeah, this happened way pre-me. This happened
Yeah.
in the 60s where the Miami firm split off, and Mr. Fowler and Mr. White were alive at the time, and they said, oh, no one will ever confuse people in Miami with the rest of the state. Let them keep the name. And,
No.
you know, they do not get the Farsighted Award for that one. And that was one of the things on my list, by the way. How do we get into Miami-Dade? Miami is the largest legal spend in the state. How can you have a statewide firm and not have a presence there? So, I mean, and we were big in Fort Lauderdale, so it's like we were just looking over the edge. And I said, we got to solve this.
And you guys would have lawsuits where it was Fowler White versus Fowler White.
Yeah, the
Hysterical.
judges didn't like that. They thought that was
Could you imagine the confusion on that
Oh,
one?
that's crazy.
Yeah, so it was a big problem for us, and this merger solved that because they already had a Miami office, although it was small. And I said, this is great. We can build
The
on
footprint
that.
to start with, yeah.
That's all we needed.
So let's move into a little bit of action here real quick, and then we're going to move on to the wealth builders. So what I'd love for you to do is I'd love for you to make a list right now of who your ideal partners would be. and I want you to ask who the ideal partner would be in each of these three areas of brand, product, and distribution. So brand would be partnering with a person or a brand that enhances your reputation. Product would be partnering with people or organizations that can add to your product offering and add value to your target clients. Distribution is partnering with people who can get your offering in front of more target customers. So when you think about those types of things, here's some great examples. From a brand recognition, Virgin is one of the best examples of how they have used their brand recognition to partner with other companies. Richard Branson owns over, I think 400, last count I think it was 438 companies have the Virgin brand logo on them. Now I promise you he has no involvement in probably 436 of them. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what it is, but he just knows that if a company puts that Virgin logo on their business, it's going to do better. So he's got Virgin Financial Services, he's got Virgin America, Virgin Airways, you know, and he's just got all these different brands and businesses that are out there. The name Virgin is such a powerful brand that, like, if you could have Virgin marketing, you'd like, what would that do for your revenue growth in the first year alone?
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be crazy, right?
Start smoking cigarettes again.
Yeah. I mean, there's literally not one person in this room that probably wouldn't benefit from having that Virgin name, even though it may have nothing to do with your business. By the way, side note, interesting thing, he only has one company that he owns that does not have the name Virgin on it.
What's the name of the company?
I don't know, but it's a modeling company, and he did not feel it appropriate to have a company called Virgin Models.
Oh.
Yeah. True story.
But he owned like wedding dresses.
Yeah.
And it was Virgin wedding dresses.
Yeah. For example of great products, Apple is known for having products. I mean, what's the motto? What do we always say about Apple products? They just work.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just work, right? They've got such a great reputation just working seamlessly that what Apple's doing now is that people come to them and they want them to put that Apple stamp onto their products and services. They're doing it through apps. I mean, if you look at the development of some of the most popular apps that are on the iPhone now, most of those apps that are Apple apps started out as their own. Siri, by the way, was an app called Siri. And it had nothing to do with Apple. And then when Siri merged with Apple, then all of a sudden Siri had the money to really start to advance voice recognition and become the Siri that it is today. Shazam used to be a separate app, and now Shazam is just a part of Siri, which is a part of Apple. So they've done a great job with that. From a distribution perspective, here's a great example: TED Talks. TED Talks have no product, right? They don't have anything at all here, but man, do they have massive distribution. They have a great brand as well, but their key, it really is distribution. If you can get into a TED Talk and that TEDx talk goes viral, then once TEDx videos hit a certain level of views, then all of a sudden TED steps in and says, this obviously is worthy. By the way, that's how they filter the quality of their product, if they want to call it product, by the way, is once a video goes viral, hits a certain number, then TED says, maybe we need to re-invite this person back to the stage to speak on a TED Talk, not a TEDx talk. But they got a massive distribution center, done very, very well. So I want you to take a moment now to write, like on a piece of paper, brand, product, and distribution, and start to write out who you feel would be great partners for you. That if you were to create some sort of partnership, don't get caught up on the mechanism of partnership. It may be just a referral partnership. That's okay. It might be just an affiliate partnership, or it might be a full-on merger. Don't get caught up on the mechanism. Just look at and by the way, here's a great example of what happens when you do this exercise and take it seriously. Rob Hessel did this in 2015 when he went through KPI. Rob Hessel has, quote me if I'm wrong, I don't know if the number's correct, is it still, I believe partnerships in 96 different countries?
We have boots on the ground in 96 plus countries right now.
And
partnerships with distributors and depoting in 80 plus countries.
80 plus countries. And that was, I don't want to say that was because of KPI, but that process he really took seriously and said, okay, let's create our hit list of our top 100 product partners and top 100, and now they just keep picking them off.
Well, yeah, and I was going to say something in reference to our company. depending on where you are in the world,
Mhm.
those circles are different for us, right? Because our
Yes.
brand is
Correct.
our brand is important someplace, and maybe it's because of the product, but we don't have the distribution. But here in the States, we're more product and distribution, and maybe we don't have the brand recognition because we're more in the channel part. So
Don, by the way, is part of Source One Solutions, which he's the third employee to go through this program, although we have 4 now because there's one after this course as well.
My favorite.
Yeah. He's our favorite, though. Everybody else we don't really enjoy.
it's such a lie.
He has to say that they hired him to do the marketing
Yes,
for
exactly.
this.
Got
He's
it,
really
got it,
just
got it.
known where his bread's buttered at this point in time. All right, so take a moment. We'll shut up and be quiet. I want you guys to brainstorm and think of who would be some great partners. And then after that, I'll share with you a strategy on how to save some time so you don't have to spend 14 months tracking them down.
Right.
They're selling.
Um,
I think
Yeah.
so.
All right, let's keep pushing on because we got a lot to do. Short time to get there. So you've got your list. How many people are on the list? Let's do a bidding here. Who's got the largest number of contacts? So how many? We'll just go how many total between brand, product, and distribution. How many people did you list? What do you got?
11.
11.
Oh, me, I've got probably, well, I was here with you last week, so
Oh,
we
yeah.
had a little bit of a head start. I
Yeah.
have about 25.
Okay. Luda.
About 5.
Okay.
6.
Okay.
30?
30. 5.
12. 30.
9.
Yeah, we got the first.
7.
All right. Here's my challenge for you guys. Are you ready? I want you to come up with 50 each. 50 product, 50
Last
brand,
week it was 100.
50 distribution. Yep. And think
50 different.
creatively.
Because one of the things that I was doing is I was seeing, brand and distribution. In other words, I was able to sort out.
somebody's into.
Yeah.
All of them would be at least into, so that doesn't count. So 50 different ones on brand, 50 different ones on product.
So
50
Now you're
different
getting
ones.
closer to
150,
100.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 150
Yeah.
total?
Yeah, 150 total. Push yourself to see if you can come up with that. Get creative. Right now, maybe you're thinking about all the ones that you know, but you haven't even thought about the ones that you think you can't get. This is one of those things where sometimes you get what you ask for, so you might as well just ask, right? And if you have 50 people that you could approach for partnership, you're going to be coming from such a place of abundance that you're not going to care about getting a no. You'll just push on and push through, right? And what it might end up happening is you might surprise yourself. And you might get more people saying yes than you have. This is a lesson I've learned very clearly just recently through trying to get campaign funds, right? Just going through my list. If you only have 5 people you want to call that day, you value those 5 so much you don't even call them because you don't want them to say no. So then you can let that ride the next day. But if I've got my list of 50 people that I need to call that day, I'm just like burning through them. And the one thing I will tell you that I've been most surprised with is that some of the people that I didn't think would be willing to or capable of contributing actually have. Like my buddy that I reached out to and had talked to, he volunteered that $500. It's restored my faith in people. So make sure you get out there and ask. All right.
Can I make a suggestion to
yes.
help our team, our folks expand the list?
Mm-hmm.
From the smallest request your client has ever asked you, do you guys do X, Y, Z? All the way to the biggest thing that you've never thought of doing,
Mhm.
but it comes from the client. Because
Mhm.
I know that if you think through your sales meetings, your clients will ask you at least 5 things that you don't do that
Mhm.
you could do.
Yeah.
And then start from there and think of all of the companies that you would work with if you were to fulfill that.
Yeah, everything that somebody's asked you that you couldn't do,
Yes.
start thinking about those companies that could provide for that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Along with what you do.
Yep. I mean, we've looked at that. I mean, we've had conversations about Ridge as a partner for us at KPI because she offers a product that we don't have, but we thought, man, there's a possibility we could actually partner up with Michelle with Ridge and offer something that we don't have, and that'd be a very cool upsell to have that videographic recording for the programs that we offer, right? So
When do you need these 150 by?
I don't.
Well,
need
I'm
them. I
saying,
won't
I'm
be
just
calling
saying,
them.
so what I'm saying is if you can call Rob
Oh, uh-huh.
and tell him to stop saying yes to everything, then I would be able to do what Michelle just said.
All
Is,
right, we'll see if we can do that for you.
Right, because he
Yeah.
says yes to everything.
Yes, yes.
And he makes my life miserable.
All right, let's move on to the wealth drivers. So with the wealth drivers, these are a little bit different now, and this is where I think we've probably got some cool stories because I would like to have you expand on that mantle of credibility. So the wealth drivers are far less tangible. They're much more, I'm not sure what the word is, I'll just let you come up with one. Insight partnerships are partnering with people that have a success track record who can provide intelligent insights based upon real world best practice. So these are people who could very well be your competition, or at one point in time were your competition. And they've done so exceptionally well, they're in such a place of abundance that they don't even mind giving up their trade secrets. A great example was Michelle is able to find an inside partnership with our new program director, Stephen Parker, because Stephen Parker's been in the LED lighting industry for God knows how long, and it literally knows everybody in the industry. And so Michelle can reach out to him because he's probably got insights that they just don't have, at least from an international perspective, certainly, right? Same thing with you, Luda, right? You've reached out to Stephen as well. Which is why we're so grateful to have him coming on board, because the guy dwarfs me with regard to just knowledge of business. I'm quite convinced that our new program director, when people meet him, they'll just be going, Topher who? I guess genius, right? So these are people who know more than you about your own subject. Then you have introduction partnerships. These are partnering with people who can introduce you to other key people of influence. Some of your best introduction partnerships are going to be the people you're sitting across the table from in this room, right? And the other people that are inside that private face group forum in KPI. The one thing you'll discover is that in KPI, we love to do business with other KPIs. We love to keep it in the family, if you will. So they're more than happy to make introductions. If there's somebody you're trying to get a hold of and sell to, in my opinion, the first thing you should do is be doing a post inside that Facebook forum saying, hey, we're trying to go for this company. Does anybody have a connection in with them? And you'll probably get, I mean, we've got over 120 some odd people here in the Tampa Bay area that are doing some pretty cool things. So there's a pretty good strong possibility that they will. And then the last one is investments. And that's partnering with people who can provide resources like money, right? Now, from investments, these could be something just straight across loans, or they could be equity deals. And we'll talk about that to whatever degree you want to. Out of the three, oh, you know what, shoot, I want to skip back to this, by the way, to the partnerships real quickly here. The one thing about having those 50 people, though, is it could take you a long time to go through and find them or even get a hold of them. But the reality is, once again, that's putting you on the hunter list. We want you to get into the hunted list. How do you become hunted in the world of partnerships?
Become visible.
That's one. What else?
Having 2 or 3 of those?
Those would be the byproducts of it, yes. There's 4 things that need to happen
did you
in order
say?
for people to
Become
want to come
visible.
find. Visibility is one of the things that need to happen. So you guys can guess some of the other ones. And this will probably make sense why we put partnerships last.
Credibility?
You have to have visibility. You have to have credibility.
Network.
What's that?
Networking ability. Access to a network.
I'll put that down as visibility, part of that.
Understood.
I was going to say reputation, but that goes along with credibility for sure.
Credibility, yep.
Profitability?
Hmm?
Is it profitability?
That's part of one.
Ties
It's
to
not the word I'm looking for.
Scalability?
Scalability, yeah. Because if the company,
Taking yours.
yeah, it's just-
Clarity, credibility, scalability, visibility, and connectivity.
yeah. Well, connectivity is what happens with the partnerships.
So
What you want is, if you want to be the hunted, you have to have clarity. People need to know exactly what you do. You need to have credibility. People need to know that you're the best person to do it. You need to have scalability. They need to know, I'm not sure if that's an actual word, but I'm going to go for it anyway. Sorry. You need to have scalability. They need to know you can handle the workload if they bring the business to you. And you have to be visible. You have to have visibility. In other words, they have to know, talking and writing, not my strong point. You got to have visibility, right? So if you have clarity of message, credibility of who you are, scalability and visibility, people will come out and want to partner with you. Step 5 of the 5-step process is the litmus test to how well you do on steps 1 through 4. How do you get clarity? Pitching. How do you get credibility? Publishing. How do you get scalability? Productizing. How do you get visibility? Raise your profile. So the way that partnerships happen, the way you become hunted, is you have these 4 things. The moment you have these 4 things, people will approach you and come to you. Now, here's where it gets fun and also cumbersome, because when people start reaching out to you, want to partner with you, you have to have a filtration system to make sure that you're not wasting a lot of time meeting with people that may not be the right one. So one of the things that we had to do at KPI, and I love this system, and by the way, I think we actually have this email template inside the portal, but if not, I can just send it to you guys, it's no problem. We've created a letter that filters people out to make sure that we're not wasting our time, because I don't want to even meet somebody for partnerships if they only have one of those 3 things. I only want to meet with people who have at least 2, ideally 3. So I have an email now that basically says, in so many words this, it says, "Hi Bob, thanks for reaching out and exploring the possibility of whatever they've promoted," right? We're always open and looking for new opportunities to partner with other people of influence. As you can imagine, we also get quite a few proposals and offers. So to make sure that we don't waste your time, nor ours, we have a criteria that we look for in creating partnerships with people. There are 3 things that we look for in a powerful partnership. Number 1, a powerful brand. In other words, we're looking for people who have a great reputation. Number 2, a great product. In other words, we're looking for people who have really great things that solve very real problems for people. In fact, I think the email says, we want companies that have full and remarkable solutions for very real problems. Number 3, distribution. Connection to people outside of our current distribution such that we would expand our network and build our database. If you could just please take a brief moment to let me know, out of those 3, which ones are the ones that you feel you have and why, I would be so grateful. And to show you that we want this partnership to go both ways, I'm prepared to share with you where we feel our strengths are on all 3 of those now. And then I have paragraphs about product, brand, and distribution, and how much I feel that we're strong in those areas. It says, please get back with me with a detailed email regarding that, and then we can move from there. You know what's great about that email? 10 people that reach out to me and want to partner, guess how many emails I get back?
1.
Yeah, about 1 out of 10. Yeah, they just self-select out, right? So have some kind of a filtration system that allows you to not have to entertain yourself, entertain other people that just may or may not be really a good partner. Yep, all right, cool. Sorry about that. All right, so let's go back into this one here. Talk about insights, introductions, and investments. Introductions. You had talked about how Clint, was it Clint? Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you're using this phrase or if this was the phrase that he gave you and he said, I'm going to give you my mantle of credibility. But
Yeah, that's what he said to me.
Okay, yeah. So tell them a little bit about that and what that has done for you in your career. And then maybe even also share with them how you now pay it forward and use your mantle of credibility for you.
Absolutely. He saw that it was important in the legal field particularly to get credibility quickly. And, you know, for most people it takes a very long time, and if you, at the time, I mean, there weren't a lot of women lawyers, and so that was going to take even longer still. Plus, I had already spent 10 years working for the university, so I was coming into this late and had to catch up. So all of those things were things that we talked about. You know, what was my expectations in coming to work for this firm? Was it something that I told them I would like to advance, and I realized I have to hurry up because I'm starting late. I'm not starting as a young associate that's just out of college. In fact, you know, I'm starting out as a much more mature person, and hopefully mature, at least in time, let's say. And so it was important to me to be able to do that. And so he said to me, I will give you my mantle of credibility. And he followed that up, not just by introducing me to people as his partner, but that was just one indication of the many ways that he could do that. For example, we had the phosphate companies that we were doing work for, and at first I was kind of behind the scenes. But he found out pretty quickly I knew an awful lot about this, and I could be much more valuable if I was working directly with the client instead of being hidden in the back room. So we went to meet them, and you know, here I am, long blonde hair, and they say, you know, you don't belong in a phosphate mine, sweetheart. And but I came with my steel-toed boots, and I'm ready to, you know, engage. And I remember the conversation that they were saying, well, you know, Clint, we're just not sure about her capabilities. And he said, look, she knows more about this, the specifics, than I do. Give her a chance. And it was the way he said it that it kind of, you know, just knocked them back, and they thought, well, you know, I can't lose anything. I'll give her a chance. And that was the beginning. All of a sudden, as I said, I became an industrial environmental lawyer right up front, just because he saw the opportunity, but he gave me that credibility with the client by vouching for me, that let me move forward with them. And from there, you know, my career just took off. They changed the law in the state of Florida and said large industries had to go through this process called developments of regional impact. These are projects that have impacts beyond the county in which they reside, so they have to be large enough to have that kind of impact. And industries were included in that. And I took the first industries through in the state of Florida, and all of a sudden, I'm a land use lawyer that does this unique permitting process that nobody had ever done before. But if he hadn't have been there to say, give her a chance, I never would have had that opportunity.
You know, as you share that story, I just realized the only reason that you and I are probably here, or you're here at least, is because Bruce Bishop did the same thing for me. Because I met Rhea, we got along well that night at Scarce, but then there was probably a good 2 months, 3 months where we didn't connect. And then when I wanted to reach out and connect with you, I remember going to Bruce saying, hey, would you mind calling Rhea and just let her know that I'm going to call? And I told him what it was, and he goes, all smoothed away for you. And then he came back and he goes, yeah, good, here's her number, call her. She's waiting for your call. And that's when I picked up the phone and called, and she answered the phone. And so I was able to use his mammal of credibility to get the connection with you. I just realized that when you were saying that.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And we use that, I mean, we do that constantly. If you think about the people that are around you, think about using their mantles or they're using yours.
Yeah. So that's from that actually could probably fall under insights or introductions, but specifically that was the one that I was looking at in terms of when you have partners that are willing to make introductions for you, that's powerful. With regard, by the way, I'll give you some examples. I mean, insights are people that are smarter and brighter than you. Here's an example of a guy who's great at doing introductions. Now, actually, it's just funny is now I pull up the slide and I'm having a brain fart on his name. Ken Rakowski. There we go. So Ken Rakowski is known for being in fact, he coined the term super connector. Ken Rakowski was the first person to create podcasts before they were even called podcasts. Yeah. He has a business called Business Rockstars. And if there's any blog that I think is worth, or podcast, I never get the terms right. Podcast? Yeah, podcast. It's a recording. Yeah. The one podcast that I would say is the best one I've ever listened to from business is Business Rockstars, Ken Rakowski. The guy's great. He's out in LA. The show calls it Business Rockstars because about a third of his clients are actual rock stars, like Gene Simmons or something like that are very entrepreneurial. So if we bring like P. Diddy and Gene Simmons and those kind of people on, Gloria Estefan, just anybody who's done well in the business sector as well. But then he also brings on Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, he gets top line talent to come onto his show. And he is he loves making introductions. That's his thing. And if you meet people who love to make introductions, you'll find that it's a passion of theirs. Jody is a perfect example of that. Jody probably spends an hour a day just obsessing on who she can make introductions to. She just loves that. I share that as well. I love to make those kind of connections and introductions. One of my favorite examples of that was the Best of Tampa Bay book. I tell that story about you all the time, about when Sven Bjormeister had the Best of Tampa Bay book. He had it just in prototype. He actually just had some diagrams, and then he had samples of other books. And I remember calling up Rhea. I think the way that my story is, in my memory, we just crashed you. We just called up and said, come over, and we just crashed her office right away. So went there, she looked at it, loved it, said, can I take these to the EDC with me today at 3 o'clock? We left the samples, and then literally the next day the EDC called Sven and put in a tentative order of 500 of those books before they were even made. And I loved that, and I didn't get a penny for that, and I didn't want a penny for that. I just loved to make the introductions. There are people here in Tampa that absolutely love doing those kinds of things. Andrew Machota is another guy who loves to make introductions and connections. Akash Patel loves to make introductions and connections. He's monetized it, so he's made a business out of it. Who else is? Who's the guy that does Tampa Bay is awesome, and
Joe Malinowski?
yeah, Joe Malinowski, another guy, loves to make connections, right? I mean, those are three people that are known in the Tampa Bay area for making connections. Two of them do it. Well, actually, Joe now charges for it. He charges a $20 a month fee to join Newtown Connections, and you go to his parties and that kind of stuff. Joe, I don't believe, has monetized it. Do you know Joe?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I don't know if he knows. I don't think he's monetized it. And then Akash, of course, everybody knows.
Yeah.
Akash.
Newtown Connections, I mean, $20 a month doesn't seem like a lot. Is that a worthwhile investment?
I don't know. I'm
What
not
was
too
your
sure.
question, Charles?
Yeah. What's that?
Well, I've heard this name come up twice now in
Newtown
KPI,
Connections,
Newtown
Andrew?
Connections. Yeah, is that a worthwhile investment of $20 a month?
Sometimes we'll host events at your place, so it can be.
Hmm.
You
He's also
you
doing
could
a
probably just
podcast
call
now.
Andrew and say, I'd love to
Yeah.
host a Newtown Connections at Pharmacy. You
love
wouldn't even
it.
have to be a member. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of make
Right.
the assessment yourself.
Uh-huh. See, made a connection.
We work out together sometimes, so, you know, I'm just kidding. I have a lot of influence over it.
You know, another thing you could do if you
Go
ever
ahead,
want, you could do a meet and greet with a potential mayor at Pharmacy. More than happy.
Uh-huh.
I've got a connection. I'll introduce you to a guy. I know him. Yes.
Got my vote.
He's a bit of a tool, but I like him. And then the investments would be people that actually want to show up and pony up some dough. So any of the sharks would be a perfect example of that. And by the way, when these people, whether they are investments, introductions, or insights, when these people also have strong product, strong brand, and strong distribution, now you're getting a tidal wave. Right? It makes it even better because then it's not just simply a relationship, it's a partnership, and it's moving forward on that aspect. So, do you have anything else you wanted to talk about? Any insights or thoughts on those types of partnerships?
You know, these to me are the ones that we spend more time thinking about now. So you started out on the cash side because it was important for your business, but then you realize for sustainability and growth opportunities, this side can give you so much more than just doing your cash partnerships.
Yeah. Oh, I had a slide. I didn't even bring it up. Yes?
Can I build on that though? I
Mhm.
think what's, as an outsider, someone who's heard Rhea speak a couple times, I think what's interesting is how you were able to leverage your work and life experience to understand, because you're a big picture person, you can see the big picture and get the job done at the same time, which is a real skill. And see the complexities of how relationships work on a statewide level to advance local growth, which is really important. I'm interested, I'd be interested in hearing about that because the story you told earlier was as much about a statewide connection as it was being able to bring something here locally. So there's the local vision and then the statewide connections, all having to do with influence. Was there a path for you in that?
Well, yeah, the path really started out by getting involved with organizations at a local level and seeing what they needed. And, you know, when I came out of school, I felt like I was behind because I was 10 years behind, and I felt like I had to catch up. So
You were 40 when you got your law degree, right?
30.
30, okay.
So I, you know, immediately head down, pencil down. I got to get going here. And somewhere in the process, one of the partners said, you know, we really need to have somewhat of an outward focus. Fowler White has been known here for, you know, we were a 75-year-old law firm at the time that we merged. We merged with Buchanan Ingersoll. And we traditionally had had great connections with our community, but we've somewhat lost some of that, and we need to get back to it. And there was something about that conversation that just, I thought, well, yeah. And of course, keep in mind, now I'm dealing in the regulatory field. I'm dealing with agencies, with local governments, and with state governments, and even federal governments. And so I could see how public policy related to everything that we did, no matter what level it might be at. So once I started working with organizations, suddenly I could see how that all worked together. So I kind of had to step outside the law firm to really see the connections. So this leads me to the one thing that I do talk about a lot, and that is we are a combination of all of our experiences, and it's incumbent upon each and every one of us to have a incredible breadth of experiences and capabilities, because you begin to bring that to your problem solving. You don't look at it, I don't feel like I look at something as a lawyer. I think I look at something more from a common sense perspective. And so that suggestion that I made earlier is one that makes my clients, well, it surprises them. My partners, they're fearful, because they'll say, no, you can't, I was talking to a tax guy today, and he was saying, nope, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. And I said, why not? And he said, well, section 234.6 says, and I said, okay, and tell me the reason behind that. And he said, well, they've just always done it that way. And I said, but does it make sense for it to be done differently? And he says, well, yeah, that was done at a time when things were very different, and the products and the things that we do have changed. And I said, good, so why don't we change the law? Well, not many people talk about changing the law, but the truth is, it got there because a bunch of people thought that it was a good idea at the time, and just as many times as we just got out of session, a whole bunch of people got together and decided they wanted to change it. And the Constitutional Revision Commission has just finished doing
Yes.
its work, which every 20 years looks at the Constitution of our state and says, you know what? Maybe we need to make some changes to address the issues that are impacting us today.
Which, by the way, she was asked by our governor to be in charge of that oversight.
Well,
so she's been doing.
Okay, he's giving me way too much credit.
No, I'm not. You're being humble.
I started this for the Florida Council of 100, which is the public policy liaison with the governor and the legislature and the judiciary. So when you start working with organizations like that, it just broadens your perspective, and you can see more how you can change things to make it work for the best. So it is that broad look, but you only get it if you actually engage at all those different levels.
And it's not necessarily that we need to be on the Council of 100, but knowing the levers, understanding our business and environment enough, and being willing to open our minds enough. That's what I'm hearing you say. Be willing to open your minds enough to get feedback from all the different pulleys and levers in your business. People who are experts in those areas.
Be willing to question.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just take something at face value because that's the way you've done it forever. Why do you do it that way? Is there a better way to do it? How do I do that? Who do I have to talk to that can make the right move so that we can get this changed so that it's better for everybody?
Something you had just, in terms of developing that influence and that outward approach, if you're looking for something tactical from a strategic, from an actions perspective, and I'd be interested in your opinion on this one, because there's probably some organizations that you know of that we could benefit from, and I guarantee I would know them. But join the leadership groups in your city, right? Leadership St. Pete, or Leadership Pasco, or Leadership Tampa, or Leadership Tampa Bay. I will tell you, some of the best people I've ever met in Tampa came out of Leadership Tampa Bay, and I would love to go to Leadership Tampa too. I want to hit that. And then there's Leadership Florida,
That's,
right?
Which is the next step.
Yeah.
Are those
The-
like local NGOs? Like, what are those? Like,
That was a great question, because I don't know, but they're all over the country.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Tampa was one of the first leadership programs ever created, And it was because people associated with the Greater Tampa Chamber of Commerce got concerned that there wouldn't be, what was gonna happen with the next generation. And so the story is that they went out, they were worried about a pollution problem in the bay. And so they went out on a little tiny boat that was essentially a skiff, and so there was not enough room for them all to sit down, so they were standing up as they were putting out into the bay. And one of them said, you know, if this boat was to capsize, they would lose the leadership of the city of Tampa. And that sparked a thought in their process, in their mind. They said, you know what, we better do something about this. So they went all around looking at leadership programs. They found a template. They created Leadership Tampa. And that immediately was put in place because they're trying to educate people in this community on what makes the community operate. What are the important parts? What are, you know, what is the contribution of the port and the airport? And, you know, the environmental organizations, what are they trying to accomplish? You need to understand how all these things work together. I will tell you a funny story. So Leadership Tampa comes along, and one of my partners is the chair of the Leadership Tampa for that particular year, and he said, Rhea, you have to go to this program. And remember, I'm head down, pencil down, and I said, I don't have time. I don't have time to deal with that. And they said, oh, but they'll teach you all about your community. And I said, I know about this community. I work in it every day. I know what I need to know. I don't need to know that. And he said, okay, let me say it to you a different way. I'm a partner. You're not. You're going to Leadership Tampa. Oh, got it. You explained it to me differently.
Why didn't you say it that way from the beginning?
I would have just not wasted my time here. I would have just agreed. So I went reluctantly. I went to the first day, and I'm going, I'm wasting time. I should be home working. I mean, because it's a big time commitment. It's like, I don't know.
Every other Thursday or Friday, something
yeah,
for
I
9
know.
months.
It's like
Boy, that's
18
a lot.
days that you spend. But I mean, by the second meeting, I said, this is the most important program we have in our community. This teaches people how to make the connection so you can see that big picture, so you can get things done. And even today, when I have a big something that I'm, pursuing, I'll call up my old Leadership Tampa people and say, hey, we got an opportunity to do something, you want to help me? And there's always a ready workforce, there's always an opportunity. I highly recommend the leadership programs.
And by the way, it's not even just that alumni group either. When you become a Leadership Tampa Bay or a Leadership Tampa or Leadership St. Pete alumni, you can pretty much just call up anybody, whatever class they are from. And if you just say you're a graduate of leadership, and then the joke is you'll say like, I'm part of Leadership Tampa Bay 2016, we were the best class ever. And every class is the best class ever, by the way. But you'll pretty much always get a call back, or a coffee, or a meeting, or a phone call, or an introduction. Also, another great one is Mayor's Neighborhood University, which I'm a huge fan of. I went through that one this year. Mayor's Neighborhood University is very similar to Leadership Tampa, and Leadership Tampa Bay, I guess, in that you take your full day tours at the back behind, but it's all related to every single department in the city. So you get a behind the scenes tour as to how this city runs and how they put things together. So it's got a lot of overlap from the Leadership Tampa groups, but it's much more just at a civic level. It's great. I mean, that's a great group. Your Kiwanis groups, your Rotary groups, all of those things are really powerful places where you can build that list that I just taxed you with. You can build that in a week. You could literally join Kiwanis or Rotary. You could join Leadership Group. You could join MNU, and you'd probably fill that up. But maybe not with MNU so much. That's not what you're looking for. But it's a different crowd with Mayor's Neighborhood University. You get a lot of describe it. What's that?
Neighborhood activists.
Neighborhood activists. Yeah. It's really funny to see the questions. You'll take it behind. Have you seen the meetings? Have you heard?
Oh, yeah. I've seen
it's
them.
it's funny. Yeah. Like there's always like one association president there, They go, any questions? It's like trash. They go, any questions? They go, yeah, I live at 4238 Driscoll, and we've been trying to get this trash can painted for the last. What are you going to do about that? They're like, really? Could you make a more specific question there? But it still gives you a lot of insight as to what's going on, and we actually got a client out of that. Juan Martinez from KPI10, who's Martinez and Company. They do port security. He was in there, and it was worth going to meet him. It was funny. He and I would sit back oftentimes going, oh my God, these questions are driving me crazy.
The leadership groups are a great way to merge the nonprofit and
Yeah.
the business and the civic,
Yeah.
because you get a whole picture, like you were saying, the whole picture of you, the community.
Are there other
And
organizations?
it makes it feel like you're building your business at home if you're not from here.
Yeah.
So I wasn't raised here, but it certainly did entrench even deeper into a feeling of home.
Well, you know, there's also trade organizations. I
Yep.
think that probably the first thing that I ever got involved with was NAOP, which is the National Association of Industrial and Office Properties, because I was doing, you know, industrial properties, and so it made sense for me to be there. But I learned an awful lot about the businesses of the people that I was representing. And again, it gives you that behind the scenes, but a much broader view than you would get ordinarily just looking at it. One other thing I'd say, you know, if you're going to join organizations, join something that's relevant to you, and then lead. You're not there just to fill a seat
Oh, yeah.
and to, you know, and to soak up information. You're there to learn and to lead, because it'll give you the visibility and the credibility that we're talking about. And so every single organization, think about how you put your whole self into it so that you end up in that position.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, my whole relationship with Feeding Tampa Bay was from Leadership Tampa Bay. That's how I met Thomas Mance. So and that's a great example. Just I got involved and I wanted to play at a bigger level there. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Bio break, 15 minutes starts now. You guys have figured out that the bathrooms don't have keys anymore. Thanks to all the men putting them in their pockets and stealing them. We now have codes. 1008. Is 1008?
Yes.
Yep.